Start there.
I'd like to call this August the 8th Jackson County Commission meeting to order. Have a roll call by Mr. Manning.
Mr. Ricks. Mr. Benton.
Present.
Mr. Buckner.
Present.
Mr. McBride.
Present. To join me in standing, I'd like to ask Mr. Arnold to say a prayer and ask Mr. Brian.
That's right. Our gracious Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for this beautiful day. Lord, we thank you for the opportunity we have to live in this country, in this county. Lord, as this meeting goes on today, we pray that you just give everyone discernment and patience. Lord, you just help them and bless them to do things needed for this county. Lord, we pray that you just do all those less fortunate around us. And Lord, help us to be mindful of those that need us. Lord, we ask all these things in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Attention. Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to apologize for Chairman Nat's not being here. I had short notice, so bear with me and we'll get through this. First thing on the agenda, we did have a presentation, an awards presentation for a Mr. Ronald Shedd. He's a state representative. I'm sure he can tell you more about the bill that they're bringing forward, but it has to do with fiber and connectivity across the state of Alabama. Jackson County, we joined the state in recognizing that need, and we appreciate the efforts of Mr. Shedd. And on behalf of the ACCA, we have an award that we would like to present him for that. We do appreciate your efforts on that, and I suppose another one, for years, water, sewer, power, those were definitely utilities when we went. And this is, if you're gonna live in the 2022, it's becoming more and more important for not only commerce, but education. We appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate that very much. I mean, I can say this, Senator Livingston has been every step of the way with us to get the broadband funding and the authority for others to be in broadband. He's been back to carry my bill in the Senate for us, and so I appreciate him very much as well. But thank you for those kind words. Association office called and said, "We here at 3:30," and I minded them. I thought it meant all on the carpet. Thank you.
We certainly appreciate you.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Very kind of it. Thank you.
All right. Next, we do have two visitors signed up to speak. Ms. Vicki Sanders and Ms. Vicki Watt. Would take the podium.
Sure will. Good to see some faces that we have. Just tell you that, school day.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, certainly. And we do ask that you state your name for the record and the organization that you're here representing.
Okay. Can you guys hear us?
And we give you 5 minutes if you want.
Okay.
State your name and the
We're gonna
organization.
give you this up so we can keep it in 5 minutes. Okay, I'm Vicki Watts, and this is Vicki Sanders, and we are here with the Barbecue Festival. This is our 7th annual year to host this event. Because COVID, of course, we didn't do that. So we just actually are here to seek partnerships and to tell you guys a little bit more about the barbecue cook-off, just in case that you don't know. And basically, I'm going to turn it over to Vicki, and she's going to, so I can be quiet, and she can tell the information that you guys want to know.
Well, I'm Vicki Sanders.
Used to be with, I have my own insurance agency, but I sold it a few months ago. It was an Allstate office. And I've been with the festival for probably about 5 years. We are a 501c3. We have no paid positions. And we strictly organize and manage and produce this festival through volunteerism. We meet every month of the year, some months, 11 months out of the year, and some months we meet every week as we get closer to the festival. Our mission is to cultivate and nurture community spirit, community pride, also to bring tourism dollars into the county and help us acquire a tourism destination status. That's what we'd all like to see, to be a destination location for Jackson County. This is a free event. It's for the people of Jackson County and our entire region. And we do have guests shoppers come from all over the North Alabama, Tennessee, and Georgia region. Our guests are economically and ethnically diverse. We have large crowds. Last year the chamber says we had about 7,000 guests on our at our festival all day long. We don't know how the chamber comes up with their numbers, but we do know that we had thousands and thousands of guests, as was indicated by our food vendors running out of food about 1 o'clock. We did have a trash problem that we're aware of what we're gonna do different this year, because we're gonna be bigger this year. We already have a lot more vendors for one thing. I'm just telling you these things just to show you how we've grown from the beginning of 8 years ago. The festival, the guests who come here, they buy gasoline, food, they stay in our hotels. Some of our vendors, and I do have 120 vendors coming this year as of today, and I'll have more than that. But a lot of them stay in the hotels, so the hotels with discounts for them. They shop in Jackson County locales. They go to our depots, our overlooks. So it does bring in tourism dollars to Jackson County, this festival does. It's cost us roughly $30,000 a year to offer this event. We use the monies for things like bathroom facilities that meet the hygiene needs for large numbers of people, barricades, tables, chairs for people to be able to sit and eat, because when you have that many people coming into an area, you have to meet their needs, human needs. I think we've said it's held on the courthouse square and their surrounding streets. They're barricaded and closed. Rocky and his department are very kind to allow us to close, and we open and close for his deputies to come in and out. We have to keep that flow open there. We manage that for him.
I would say to the larger areas when we close this time, because it has got so large. So the courthouse size, when we close all that, you guys can come in and out here, so we do accommodate.
We do. Other things that money is used for would be advertising, gift zones, entertainment, activities, so much more that is just so detailed. It takes us, we have to meet every month of the year. This festival has many, many moving parts, so it keeps people ebbing and flowing all day long onto the courthouse square. Ralph Good, Ralph puts on a huge plastic car show over around City Hall. So that's kind of the main entrance, and it just flows out into a huge vendor festival with just all kinds of things going on. Vicki and her husband spearhead a Kansas City Barbecue Society professional barbecue competition. It usually has about 40 professional backyard barbecue vendors, our competitors there. They're buying points, they've got invitations to the next level. So it's had a lot of moving parts and a lot of things are happening. And we do look for partnerships to help make this possible every year. Some of our partners will be unclaimed. Allstate has always been a very good partner. This year, instead of being Allstate through Vicki Sanders, will be Allstate through Corey Hickson, Huntsville Hospital, Highlands, Utilities, Maple, City of Scottsboro, Scottsboro Utilities, Family Savings, PHP. There's just so many people. There's already people that we have to talk to next week that are wanting to jump on board because it's been such a big hit. We're here today to hopefully seek partnership from the county commission. I say I have 120 vendors coming this year. Probably a third of those vendors are from Jackson County, not Scottsboro, the Jackson County area, and they lean solely on their vending to meet their financial needs. That's what they do for a living. So we'll, that's something to take into consideration. We would like to seek partnership with the commission in helping provide this festival.
Is there any remarks or questions?
Well, what exactly are you, define partnership?
Well, sponsorship. Sponsorship. And sponsorships range anywhere from, some sponsorships are $250. Some sponsorships are $1,000. Allstate usually sponsors $6,000. Allstate looks for particular things. They like community spirit, community pride, things that bring in that type of warmth and vibe. I'll just say, using old sentences, all day myself. So we're looking for sponsorship.
And so when would you hope to have a sponsorship?
Well, some of our sponsors pay in advance of the festival. Allstate pays after the festival. I have to do a lot of grant preparation for Allstate. And I've done that for years with Allstate since I've been on the board for 5 years. So I always go back in there and did a reporting this year. And so they pay after the event happens. So it depends on the.
As long as the commission put this on a meeting in the next month or so for discussion.
Yes.
And also you can pay part one and then part next year, and then or the next quarter. A lot of them do that as well.
Okay. Mr. McBride, you have it.
Appreciate you.
Thank both of y'all and thank you for what you do for the community.
You're welcome, you're welcome.
All right, well, it's our public comments and our awards done. We need to approve our agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda? I don't think we have any changes.
I make a motion, we approve the agenda as stated.
Motion by Mr. Buckner,
Second.
second by Mr. McBride. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, first thing on our regular meeting business is a motion to approve the minutes from the June 23rd special work sessions, the July the 11th meeting, July 12th, 13th, and 15th budget meetings. Can I get a motion to approve those?
I'll make the motion. We approve
A motion, we get a second.
I second that.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Motion to set a date for the public hearing for the Scottsboro solid waste. It was brought to our attention the last work session. I think that meeting is wanting to be held on September the 26th at 3:30 when we have our regular commission meeting. Have a motion for that.
Yeah, I'll make the motion that we set the meeting at September 26th at the regular meeting time at 3:30.
Have a motion from Mr. Buckner for that.
Second.
Second from Mr. McBride. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. All right, we have a motion to approve the hiring committee's recommendation for the vacant HMT 2 position at Public Works. You have a letter in your packet from the hiring committee and a recommendation. I get a motion to approve this recommendation.
Yeah, I'll make that motion that we approve the hiring committee's recommendation.
I have a motion by Mr. Buckner,
Second.
a second by Mr. McBride. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Lastly, on our meeting, we have a motion to approve the hiring committee's recommendation for a vacant real property appraiser position in mapping and appraisal office for the revenue commissioner. I get a motion to, you also have a letter in your packet.
I'll make that.
We have a motion by Mr. McBride to approve that recommendation.
And I'll second that.
Second by Mr. Buckner. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. That concludes our meeting. Next, we have discussion items in our work session, and first we have public works. Mr. Campbell.
you, Vice Chairman and Commissioners. To start this discussion, will probably be best to glance back to just kind of a recap on rebuild and federal aid exchange and see where we are. We're bringing these topics forward in advance of a deadline that we must meet by the end of this month to satisfy the Rebuild Alabama law, in which we must advertise and have selected our 2023 county transportation plan. So once approved, that will be posted on the website and in the areas listed, our department, courthouse, et cetera, to be in compliance with the law. So as we typically do, we have some projects for you and some dollar amounts listed of anticipated revenue, but before we move forward, I'd like to glance back to 2022 and a little back to 2021's plan. So the main reason for that is there are overages that we have experienced for this year's Rebuild Alabama and Federal Aid Exchange. In particular, anticipated overages on County Road 88. So just to look back, we had a leftover remainder of projects that were incomplete from last year, and that was County Road 58 and then County Road 38 for the county region. The County Road 58 project saw some overages, and County Road 75 had some overages, and so did County Road 88. And I'll get into those exact amounts, but I want to talk a little bit in general on the whys, and then looking forward what we can do to anticipate that in this year's plan. So with the remaining projects from 2021 that were performed this year in 2022, it's important to remember the order of process in which we take up this business in relation to the annual bids. And so more specifically, when we have our annual bid prices come in, which will be next week, we'll open annual bids. At that time, obviously those numbers are not available when we're doing the estimating and putting this program together price-wise. So if we couple that with additional overruns that we have incurred from asphalt price increases as well as construction fuel increases, that makes up the difference. But the main one comes in the way of scope changes. So in particular, last year's rebuild, in advance of last year's rebuild, we had drainage structure capabilities incorporated into our annual bids. So when these projects were estimated, we had plans of performing the drainage work ahead of the resurfacing with in-house forces. However, in order to accomplish the 22 miles plus of local roads and try to get the remainder of last year's work done, in addition to the selections that were made for 22, it became evident that we need to turn our focus on what can we do with contract forces to advance these projects, as well as using local forces to work on local roads. So in doing that, there's a price tag associated with it. And those numbers also came in after this process in our annual bid items. So long story short, county rebuild is okay. We're just slightly over there, less than 60,000. But the federal aid exchange coffers are projecting to be in the $200,000 range over. So that leaves us with a couple of options that I would propose. We can reduce our obligation for this year going forward on federal aid exchange, or we can allow these overages to be handled with 111 cash balance and move forward with full obligation project selection. So I would offer that 111 is in a good position to handle that. And from a road and bridge accomplishment standpoint, that's as good an investment as we can make, I think. So I'll propose that we pay the overage that's projected this year, and it's projected because the work's not complete yet. We're just trying to forecast this accurately. And those be handled by 111, and then in this business that we're about to consider, that we go ahead and allocate fully the 400,000 that we expect to receive for federal aid exchange for project selection.
As far as going forward, recognizing the fact that
drainage structure work is very impactful to the overall cost of the project. Gary and his team have worked hard on identifying all of the drainage structures that we anticipate replacement on the selections we're about to discuss on this. So, as well as taking our most recent bid history with these estimates, and then looking forward to an increase. So we glanced back and looked at what is asphalt adjustments done to us, what is construction fuel index increases done to us, and then we try to increase our estimate to hopefully account for that. So if we assume we're at the apex and we obligate conservatively here, which hopefully we've laid that out that way, then going forward, we could actually receive more money than anticipated, or our estimates could be a little higher than anticipated as we go forward, and the cost of doing business decreases, fuel-related costs. So that's probably a little more background than you wanted, but are any questions before we scratch and move forward? Okay, so I plan to work from the large stick sheet that's topped with this one, okay? And so like years past, you'll see a breakdown here on county rebuild Alabama funds and federal aid exchange funds, and just some kind of rules of the land here on this. Federal aid exchange fund, the bottom category, must be obligated to minor collector or grader classification. So it was what we exchanged our federal aid money for, so the same rules apply to it. It's kind of the way I keep it straight. And then county rebuild, which is the bigger kitty, can go for anything, any road and bridge project, okay? So just because they're categorized here, don't feel like you have to stay in bounds on obligation except for the bottom one. So the projects listed under these categories are that type of road, but Rebuild Alabama money can be spent down in federal aid exchange fund projects. So just looking at the list, resurfacing, both categories will have resurfacing selections and pavement preservation selections. Obviously, there are a few columns of information that I'll just draw your attention to. The road numbers are listed, the description is there, the length of the project, the ADT, so that's going to be your cars per day, and then obviously the estimated cost for doing that work. There's a column that's last paved. So that's where we have our best records indicator of when that work was last done and how old that pavement is. That's also a good indicator of the scope of work that we're proposing. A resurfacing project, and hopefully this is evident in your pictures, is something that's gotten to the point that's beyond preservation. It's going to take a structural application to perform properly over the amount of time in which we are projected. The pavement preservation are projects that we feel if we act accordingly and promptly on, that they can be preserved before they get to the point of needing to be fully resurfaced with a structural layer. So the pavement preservation, the information you have does not go into all the different applications that we're proposing. We have that information and we're happy to share it if you need it, but it can vary from sand seals, like you saw on 38, that was over the scrub. It could be a scrub seal and a sand. It could be a micro surfacing, which is planned for 96 and County Road 88 this year. So just more information as you study these and make a selection. So that's the summary of how this is broken down. This may be a few more options than typically provided, but honestly, we wanted to have it to where you can close your eyes and put your finger on the paper and you can't go wrong, okay? There is no hierarchy in the way that you're listed. Matter of fact, there's some leftovers from last year and the ones we put on this year are just under, okay? So they're not worse to less bad. They're just all warranted and needed, we feel like, so. So I'll say that.
Jonathan, last year when we talked about County Road 14 and 314, you mentioned some safety concerns and maybe some grants that road qualified for. Would that be in addition to this total, or is that something that could be another revenue source for that?
I think it's a possibility. So when we look at safety related grants and we try to incorporate that with resurfacing, the timeline is the issue. So we do have some information that we feel like we could leverage as far as making that project a possible selection for improvements. But when we get to the basis of resurfacing work, coupling that with those improvements may not line up on the timeline to happen simultaneously. So
I was just thinking in terms of bringing multiple pools.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
if it's selected, I will say this, if it's selected, we can try that.
Okay.
We can try that.
And I'm not saying that that's the choice. It's just
Right, right.
another road that I have no doubt that needs it. 33. I noticed the high traffic count on that. That's going to be predominantly those heavy trucks coming from whoever owns the gravel mill over there now. Is that right, or is there been some additional homes put out there or something?
Yeah, so if I'm correct, you're talking down in the Federal Aid Exchange, the 33, which is 72 to the railroad.
Correct.
Yeah, so it's getting it twofold. That section is seeing a lot of truck traffic from the church pit
Right.
as well as the quarry that's on north on 33.
So that's
So
what I thought. So for me, and this is just an educational thing for me. With that heavy vehicle traffic, is it a wise investment to preserve that road now, or is it better to let that activity slow down and then put a proper surface on it?
So it's beyond preservation. It's beyond preservation, and a little bit of history lesson there. When we selected the next portion of 33, which is actually from the railroad track down to 229 right about the quarry, this was actually a part of it, and that's been probably 7 years ago. And the deal breaker was the railroad crossing. So at the time, we were trying to utilize federal aid funds, and it was determined that that section and crossing would require a full signal upgrade. And it was cost prohibitive to the project. It was near the entire cost. So that project was scaled down to the section I just mentioned, and this was left out. So now that this funding has changed and we're actually not incorporating the railroad right away, there's a break there on either side. This would be that part, but it's beyond preserving. But to answer your question better, hopefully, what we're going to do is consider truck traffic. So
Okay.
if we do what we plan, we feel it should withstand any truck traffic that it should encounter.
That section of 33, we definitely need to consider.
Yeah.
From 72 to the railroad tracks. I mean, it services the school and commerce of the town, but we use Alabama rebuild dollars. We wouldn't be held to that same restriction as we would with our Woodley as far as the railroad crossing.
No, sir, the railroad crossing will not be in our project limits now.
That section and then the section of 33 that goes up Crow Mountain, from Highway 79 to Highway 39, we have a fairly decent surface, and then from 32 all the way to Hollywood, we have decent surface. We only have 2 sections of that entire strip of road that are in bad need of repair.
Yes, sir.
And thinking in terms of tourism and access to the beautiful spots, I mean, to me, 33 is one of the prettiest roads we have. Because it goes deep in the heart of that valley and up on the mountain. And I think it would be a wonderful road to feature if we could, but I don't know that we're at that point. terms of roads we want people riding down and where we can highlight what we have. It's good. All right, so thank you, Dustin.
Yes, sir. So to delve on in a little deeper, if there's not further questions about the front sheet, the next is a color coded sheet, and this plays mostly on the last page. So it's categorized also for county rebuild and federal aid change, but what this is basically the basis of our selection. So if you look, you'll quickly notice colors that are assigned to those, and just as a legend, 0 to 7, 8 to 15, and 16 plus, that's a breakdown on where we start on making a delineation between resurfacing, preservation, or good. So if you picture it as good, fair, forward, then that's where we're going to start our surveys on analyzing the roads and candidates that are, largely susceptible for preservation. There are going to be, in my opinion, quick grabs in the resurfacing part and projects and multiple projects that are much of need. But when we look at really spreading our wings on what we can get for our dollars, this yellow section or preserving really makes a large difference on how many miles. So if we think back to asset management and we're looking at the name of the game being how many miles we cover, spreading those dollars out and covering the most amount of miles becomes really the main objective to making these dollars work as far as from a programmatic standpoint. So having said that, by comparison, I'll just offer this out for you. And I'm just basically randomly grabbing these. But if you look, County Road 37 and you see pavement preservation, that's a 1.2 mile project and the price tag is $179,000. And you find a comparable resurfacing project right above it, County Road 18, that's $332,000. So, when we talk about the same distance, we're almost talking about half price as far as the cost of getting coverage. So,
But the preservation versus resurfacing should be approximately half the life. I mean, the resurfacing is supposed to get us 17, 18 years.
well,
Additional.
ideally, if we're successful, this preservation is going to be near the life of a resurfacing project. So, for example, the County Road 38 project we just completed, almost 4 miles, almost half of what a resurfacing would do. And our projection is 18 years on that before it'll have to be touched again. So if we think about the resurfacing process to where we have to come in and do patching, so we have to patch the worst areas. Then we have to come in and seal all that oxidized, cracked asphalt with a layer, and it's usually a scrub seal. It's the best thing on the market now to penetrate the cracks and seal it. And then we have to overlay it with a structural layer. Well, those same processes are very similar in preservation. We still have to patch the bad. We still have to seal up that cracked oxidized pavement. It's just not as cracked and not as bad, and there's not as many bad places. But then we come over it with that wearing surface. It's just a very thin, less expensive layer instead of a structural hot mix asphalt overlay. If that makes sense. So it's kind of like we're doing resurfacing. We're just doing some of the phases now instead of waiting until the road gets really bad. If that makes sense.
So the big cost difference is in that last process.
The last layer.
The last one.
Yes, sir.
Basically, you're preventing the water intrusion and the breakdown of your substrate. By doing it earlier, you don't have as much damage to fix and you're protecting your base layers.
Yes, and take this warning. It's a hard sell for folks. It's hard for folks to grasp this because when we're out there working on them, in most views, there's nothing wrong with that road.
And we get it, we know.
Yeah.
We get the
I
fun.
preach to the choir, I know, but we're driving on a local road that's full of holes, but you're out here working on a road that's good. But in reality, stretching those dollars is a benefit. The rest of the information in the packet is support information. It's photos. Hopefully they're good photos. You can tell from that, as you study this, if we're comfortable moving forward the next week, if questions arise during that time, please give us a call. If you'd like to see a detailed cost estimate, please give us a call. If we can provide additional photos, or you want us to take a look at something else on the list with all the colors that you see that we didn't have on the list, or you need an explanation, please reach out. We want to make sure that there's a comfort level there to where the selection you make is a defensible decision.
So if I understand you correctly, if we're looking at the budgeted number for the rebuild, then basically we could take the top 4 pavement preservations and get within that number.
Yeah, so that number that's up top in the yellow, 900,000, that would be an allocation that we are projecting to be in line with our anticipated revenue. So that's how much money could be obligated. The 400,000 that's listed on Federal Aid Exchange is the same. However, just a reminder of the rules, Federal Aid Exchange must be spent on those projects below it. Rebuild can be spent on the ones below it or the ones below Federal Aid Exchange. So rebuild can go anywhere on the page. The 400,000 must be with projects below it.
And that pavement preservation, what percentage of the work are we doing on that, or we contracting?
Okay, so all this is contract work,
Every bit.
100%, particularly with the drainage structure now. So we're trying to come at this thing with 2 prongs. The contractors can do all the drainage structure replacement. They can do all the extra depth patching. They can do the preservation layers, and they can do the overlay layers for the resurfacing, or they can do the preservation wearing surface.
So it won't affect the crews that are doing what they're doing.
Yes, in the meantime, our crews can focus on local roads. We lost ground this year because our crews tried to do the drainage structure replacements on 38. They do a great job. They do fantastic, but those 2 weeks we spent on those 10 drainage structures, we could probably be 2 weeks further ahead on our local roads at this point.
So you're requesting that both of these be put on the next meeting for the county commission to pick
Please,
from and approve?
yes, please, if we can to meet our deadline for the end of this month.
Mr. Manning, you make a note of that.
And then also in one fell swoop, if we could make a distinction on how that funding to cover the overages.
All right. And you have another topic, a local road project selection.
So in budget discussions, we're encouraged to put these together and present to you guys as far as an overall transportation plan. So this list hopefully comes as no surprise to you on local roads. The conversation had gone a few different directions during budget time and discussions, and so I'm not certain where it was left as far as the comfort level on funding options or how many miles we want to select out of this, or if any wants to be selected at this time. But I wanted to put this list back out there as a selection for consideration at the same time as the other is being considered.
I personally was unable to attend the budget meeting dealing with public works. And as far as I know, the commission hadn't had any further talks about the possibility of spending some of our ARPA funds, but that's something we definitely want to explore. Perhaps maybe the next meeting we have it on the work session to discuss that. I mean, we have 2 completely different road systems, if you will. And we have our major and minor collectors that we discussed, with the federal aid and the rebuild. And then we have, that's about 230 miles. We have about 870 miles of local roads that we normally do our chip seal. Our major and minor collectors, Mr. Campbell, you can interrupt me if I'm wrong, but I mean, we're in fairly decent shape with that section of roads, are we not? I mean, as far as an ALDOT rating and you know, the safety concerns and issues with that 230 miles of road. It's the 870 miles of road that we don't have funding for, and we're not covering enough ground on that we get most of the complaints from. No matter what we do, and this ARPA funds is a one-time thing. It can help, but something's got to change for us to have enough funding. You know, to do a decent job at keeping up the infrastructure we have in place.
At the budget meetings, we did discuss that as an option to use some of our funding. So,
I think it was left at maybe somewhere around 15 miles perhaps,
something like that.
which will be about the 1 million mark total project cost.
And I know there's tons and tons of roads out there that need attention and need resurfacing besides what you got on the list. As far as District 2, if you could, Mr. Campbell, I'm not saying add it to this list, but County Road 21, I know we've had several issues with it ever since the flood that caused the 4 slides. You know, we have the scouring of the pavement.
Yes, sir.
That upper section, that section of road, believe it or not, really helps the commerce and the tax structure at Skyline, because the folks that live at the foot of the mountain there, they travel that to getting back and forth to Skyline to go to the gas station or the dollar store or grocery store or whatever. I would like some numbers on what it would cost at least to fix that drainage structure that's an issue, and, you know, not repaving the whole road, but at least fixing the scoured off portion of that where the drainage structure issue is.
Right at the top.
Yeah, right before you get to the top, there's a driveway that goes in, and that tile keeps stopping up. Problem is, we can't get a deep enough ditch to get a large enough culvert in. Same thing with our cross drainage. We have a cross drainage right above that. Well, actually, there's 2 spots, but anyway, our cross drainage is shallow because the rock that's there.
So the limits would be from 79, the entire mountainside?
Now, just from 79 down to that sharp curve where that second drainage issue is.
I think that's what I sent you pictures of.
Yes, sir.
Anything else on local road project selection?
No, sir.
Now, on local roads, is that, are you wanting us to prioritize what we think, or is this?
Unlike the other list, this is a good starting point on prioritization, we feel like. So when we make the survey, make the notes, and then prioritize these, we present these to you as pretty well our projection on worst first here. And there's a difference when we look at these roads and consider things such as preservation or resurfacing. When we talk about a chip seal application, you know, structurally, it's really just tar and gravel out there. So in a lot of respects, these are either patchable or they're beyond patchable. And a lot of these projects on this sheet listed will be mostly reclaimed to resurface.
And I'm sure that you get asked this question a lot. When are the pavers coming back to finish this fall?
I don't know the exact date. However, I do know that he will be back this month based on the latest information we have. So we still have ongoing work, but we have near 5 miles ready and waiting that they can turn loose on. So that's what we're anticipating in the coming weeks, that portion. Then hopefully we'll have another round.
Any further questions on this subject? No. We'll move on to the equipment surplus and auction proposal.
So I'll be referencing the information in several pages that look like this. And to glance back a little bit here on a little bit of background. Beginning of this year, we made the selections for equipment replacement. And equipment now, as we've discussed, hinges on availability as much as anything. We have been informed that there is a chance that we will see replacement heavy-duty dump trucks that could come in September. It looks like at this point that it's going to be potentially too close to the September auction date for comfort as far as turnaround, cleanup, any repairs that we typically do in-house before we send these to auction. However, it is possible. So this letter is a proposal, should that shape up for September, but if it does not, this proposal and guarantee is also good for December. So it is our hope that we make the auction on one of the two of these, and potentially September, but definitely should be good for December on 3 triaxles. And I'll just direct you to the second sheet at the lower where it says proposal option A. And that's the nuts and bolts of the proposal given. So that's about 205,000 per truck, 3 trucks. And as a recap, the purchase price was 152,594. So we're guaranteed 205 gross, less 6% auction fee. We paid 152,594. That sounds good, but then thinking about forward with that, you know, we're on the hook for others at a purchase price of about 191. So this keeps us rolling, and this proposal is a basis of that for that. However, it's not necessarily indicative of what we'll see at the actual auction result. So we know we're going to get back 205 less 6% on these trucks. However, it could be more, but not less.
So you need approval for this at our next meeting, or is that fine timeline?
I think timeline wise, that is fine. Yes, and with your approval of this body, that would grant me the ability to sign into this agreement for our trucks to be in that auction in September, December at the latest.
So, Mr. Manning, I asked you, you're already making a note. Thank you, sir. All right. Anything else, Mr. Campbell?
That's it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right. Next topics are commission topics. A meeting schedule for August and September. Mr. Manning had mentioned there's some September meetings that may need to be rescheduled, and our next scheduled August meeting is on the 22nd. I know most everybody's going to be at conference, so spoke to the chairman and either back it up to Wednesday the 17th or Friday the 19th. Whatever the general consensus is amongst the commission. That's not something we got to vote on, but you know, whatever matches everybody's schedule better. The 17th would actually be better for me.
17th would be a little bit of a challenge, but I could probably make that work.
Would a time on the 17th change help you?
Yes, absolutely.
Move it to 4 or 4:30 or 5.
I mean, what would work better for you?
It doesn't matter to me on the 17th. I'm gonna be out of town on the 18th. I'll be coming back on the 19th, but you know, to push me to get back in time.
I mean, 5 would be the safest,
Okay.
but if that's too late, I can get here as quick as I can.
If you want to, Mr. Buckner, maybe have a conversation with the chairman tomorrow or the next day. That's not something we vote on. I'm fine with whatever time on the 17th, but I know if we do it past 4:30, the courthouse is closed, the department heads are gone.
So
We're asking them to stay 30 extra minutes, you know, to attend. I understand. I mean,
No. We have to make some kind of public announcement on the meeting.
yeah, we have
So,
a week. Yeah, we have to announce it a week ahead of
all
time.
right, so I'll try to take care of that. But everybody else is good for the 17th.
Yeah, I'm fine with the 17th, whatever time. All right. Our next topic of discussion is the retiree longevity bonus. Willis, do you want? You have anything to add? I mean, I know, I can't remember how much was it, so many dollars per year of service.
$2 per year of service. And the deadline is August the 31st. Has to be to ERS by then.
If we take care of that on 17th, we should be fine. Okay.
We have any further questions or anything on that?
We have a copy of the model resolution, so we don't have to put any of that together.
It's a one-time payment.
No further discussion on that. We have, in your packet, you have a request from the city of Pisgah. They've received, notice that they are going to get a sizable grant to replace their main water line on their water system, and they're requesting help. I did speak with the chairman just prior to the commission meeting, and he had talked with the clerk, I think, at the town of Pisgah, and you know, we set aside a certain amount of money that we were going to use for water projects. And he made them aware that, you know, we may need more projects to come in and see whether other entities are going to be able to obtain any grants before we start shelling out money. So I don't know that this will be on our next meeting, but y'all have a copy of the email of the request that was sent.
Yeah, I just think it's very wise for us to wait till we see who else is gonna qualify for these grants, because it's to my understanding that all of the water authorities applied, and so there's a chance that all of them can receive something. And we would like to support this project, and we do have money set aside for this, but to commit
This type project, yeah.
to commit at this time,
Yeah.
that amount of money, or even any percent of that, I think would be kind of short-sighted on our part.
Well,
But I'm extremely proud of the city of Pisgah for receiving the grant, for putting the time in to get it. You know, it's the steps we need to be taking in all our utilities right now.
one of the biggest questions I have concerning it is I don't know how many customers they have. I don't know how many people they service. You know, they have an imminent threat of losing their ability to provide for these customers or not. And we would be wise to take those ARPA dollars and reach as many households as we can with it. And there's just a lot of questions got to be answered. And like Mr. Butler said, I just feel more comfortable having as many possible projects as we can in front of us at the same time to see how we want to break that money up.
I agree. I think we're a little premature on making a decision. Hear from everybody.
Well, that's all we have on our work session, so.
Mr. Whipple, was you gonna do anything on this meeting schedule for September? It was on there, I didn't know jobs.
Now, what do you need in terms of budget?
Well, the September the 26th will be the last for that month. I think there was discussion about the first meeting in September.
We can discuss that at our next August meeting, because I don't know why or what the circumstances are, and I hate to make
Okay.
make a date and the chairman and Mr. Rich not be here to
We'll just discuss
So
that.
especially with budget, we'd like to have as many people here as we can. Yep.
So that will move on to our comments from our staff. Do we have, I'm not, we've got a lot of our department heads here. I don't want to go through and name everybody, but raise your hand if you got anything that you want to. All right. Mr. Manning, you have anything? Mr. Porter, do you have anything?
I'm good so far, thanks.
Mr. McBride,
I'm good, thank you.
Mr. Butler?
It is an absolute pleasure to be here today. Thank you very much.
I don't have anything else to add, but before I ask for a motion to adjourn, I would ask for a motion to go into executive session. The motion needs to clarify that it is for good name and character of an individual.
I make the motion. We go on executive session. Just good name and character of an individual.
I have a motion by Mr. McBride. Can I get a second?
And I'll second that.
I have a second by Mr. Buckner. All in favor, say aye. Aye. With the executive session.
So on nine, we did agree to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go with that.
I have a motion by Mr. McBride and a second by Mr. Buckner to come out of executive session. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. All right. We have a request from Mr. Randy Grider, our solid waste director, for a disciplinary action. We have a motion to support Mr. Grider's disciplinary action.
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
We have a motion by Mr. Buckner to support the disciplinary action. We have a second.
I'll say,
We have a second by Mr. McBride. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, that concludes our business, so we'll get a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion, we adjourn this meeting.
We have a motion to adjourn by Mr. Buckner. We get a second to adjourn.
I'll say.
We have a second by Mr. McBride. All in favor, say aye. Aye. We adjourn.
Thank you.